ask you to keep one thing in mind. I'm going to read something very brief from the book that you all were asked to take a look at before the conference, Half the Sky. And as the heading for one of the chapters, entitled What You Can Do, there's a quote that I think is very important from Mahatma Gandhi. He said, "You must be the change you wish to see in the world. You must be the change that you wish to see in the world." And let's keep that in mind as we listen to these two presentations. The first will be from Rajani Ghosh, who is a sophomore at Boston University. She's majoring in political science and recently returned from India, where she met with one of the champions of women's rights in that country, Rita Banerjee, in Kolkata. Rajani is active in the UU Church in Columbia, Maryland, and in 2008 was recognized as the outstanding UU youth in the Joseph Priestley District. Last summer, she interned with Senator Barbara Mikulski, and this summer, she will be working at the U.S. Department of State. Welcome, Rajani Ghosh.
Hello, thank you for that wonderful welcome. I want to start by saying I'm so excited to see all the youth here. I was definitely an avid Wire UU member, so that's really exciting to see. So, let's begin. On March 31st, early data from the 2011 Indian National Census was published. Among encouraging signs of improvement, including higher literacy rates and a longer life expectancy, is the jarring fact that in 2011, India counted only 914 girls aged 6 and under for every 1,000 boys. Now, what does it mean? Why is this gender imbalance significant? When I first started researching for this presentation, I often found myself asking this question. Growing up in the United States, I had had very little experience with understanding the question of gender ratio. It seemed a given. In every class I went into, there were almost the same amount of girls and boys, men and women growing up. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this presentation, it is that a balanced gender ratio is not a given. Next slide, please. I'm here today as a voice for the 50 Million Missing campaign, an online global campaign to end the female genocide occurring in India. Next slide. The campaign was first launched in December 2006 by author and gender activist Rita Banerjee. The data and information surrounding this injustice is disturbing and not easy to hear. However, it is my goal in this presentation to not tell you about what is happening, to not only tell you about what is happening, but to also tell you how we, as Unitarian Universalists, can fight to change it. Next slide. So the word missing is often misinterpreted. Many, when they first hear about the campaign, assume that this is about lost persons or women who have been sex trafficked, but this is not the case. It refers to women who, based on the average gender ratio for a nation, should be alive but cannot be accounted for. The term missing was first used by the Nobel laureate Amartya Sen. The normal sex ratio of the human population is approximately 1:1, but because girl infants survive better and women tend to live longer, the gender ratio of most countries favors females. However, in 1986, Amartya Sen calculated that India had an abnormally skewed gender ratio. For every 100 males, there were only 93 females. He calculated that there were at least 37 million women missing from India's population. 20 years after Professor Sen's announcement, by 2005, it was reported that the number of females eliminated from India's population had climbed to about 50 million, hence the name of the campaign. However, since the campaign was created in 2006, the gender ratio has continued to become more skewed, which is clearly demonstrated in the recent census data I mentioned. The ratio of 914 girls to 1,000 boys is the lowest sex ratio recorded in India since India's first gained independence in 1947. Next slide. 50 million women. The same amount of lives as if the entire populations of Sweden, Australia, Switzerland, Belgium, and Portugal were wiped out. How is this possible? You have to ask yourself, how could more than 50 million people of a targeted group be eliminated from a country and the world not know about it? Would this have remained unknown if the victimized group was defined by religion or ethnicity instead of a gender? Would it stay hidden if this was about men instead of women? In a survey administered by the campaign, it was determined that only about 38% of the people surveyed in and outside of India had some sense of the actual rate at which female amputation was occurring in India. There is simply no awareness. This is why the main goal of the campaign is to inform the public. This ongoing, silent genocide must be given a voice. Next slide. Important to realize is that this is a human problem. While I was visiting India this past January, I was fortunate to get the chance to sit and talk with Ms. Banerjee, the founder of the campaign. Planning on a brief interview in which I asked my questions, obsessively took notes, and then left, I never expected a passionate conversation that resulted in my adoption of a completely new outlook of this issue. Having been so engaged in our conversation, my notes from the interview were scarce. However, the one thing that has remained with me throughout this entire presentation and research is that this is a human problem. It is not a female problem, nor is it an abortion problem, or a poverty problem, or even an Indian problem. This is a human problem. Next slide. Wherever there is talk of India's skewed gender ratio, it is always pinned on one fact, and that is sex-selected abortion. But through her research and findings in her book, Sex and Power, campaign founder Rita Banerjee has established that the violence against women in India is systemic. It involves an entire social system. Ordinary citizens, medical establishments, police, government officials, judiciary, and big-scale biomedical commercial companies. Killing females has become a normalized, integrated function of an entire social system. Ms. Banerjee highlights in her book that this genocide is perpetuated through a number of factors that are killing females at almost every stage of life. They read as a list, as you can see on the screen. Female feticide, female infanticide, the highest maternal mortality rate in the world, an abnormally high mortality rate of girls under 5 due to deliberate neglect, and dowry murders. I'm now going to go through these different ways in more detail in order to demonstrate the magnitude at which they are occurring. Next slide. Female feticide. With the skewed gender imbalance in mind, discovering the sex of a baby before birth was made illegal in 1994 in India. The Indian government passed the Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Act, prohibiting the sex selection of a fetus with a view towards aborting it. It is estimated, though, that more than 1 million females are selectively aborted in India every year. This, of course, by and large, is the most extensive form of elimination of females from India's population. Because of the issue of expense, it is largely practiced by the educated middle and upper classes. It is also highly prevalent in Indian communities, leading to skewed gender ratios among Indians in Canada, in UK, in Australia, and in the US. As a result, like India, the UK and Australia have also implemented laws banning sex-selected abortion. Important to realize is that because these abortions are illegal, and since there is a mass market demand for these abortions, doctors perform them in a pseudo-assembly line process. They are performed under haphazard conditions, knowing there is no liability since the patient too is complicit in an illegal act. Many of the abortions also take place very late in the pregnancy, sometimes as late as the 3rd trimester, so the parents can be absolutely certain they are not aborting a boy. Next slide. Female infanticide. Female infanticide has a long history in India. There is mention of it in the Vedas, India's sacred scriptures, and it's more than 1,800 years old.